steering it when Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister. But it brings me to another very important aspect which you raised. Vikram, do you think that there is an internal displacement, as Mr. Khurshid was talking about, a shift of the Nehruvian consensus in last 10 years of Modi's tenure, a parallel alternative or a competing narrative?
Thank you, Kartikeya, and such a great pleasure to share the stage with all eminent people, especially my dear friend, Mr. Khurshid, whom we have always had very healthy debates with. I think the fight today is constantly this, at least on the cultural side. And to a large extent, I believe that it's the culture and the civilization which then defines the hard power. First, you need to have that sense of rootedness to your identity, to where you come from, your civilization, and then you go external and you're able to conquer newer vistas. So there, I think, as you rightly said, there's been this very, very bitter contestation between what is popularly known as the Nehruvian consensus to what is happening today. I think Mr. Nehru was it's product of his times. So there was also the time when a new nation was being born out of the bloodbath of partition and all the other problems that emerged with it. But in the process, I think there was a deep rupture with the past. He was willing, I think, to make a new India that had at best, a very tenuous relationship with the past, where the past was great to be seen as a fossilized museum piece, but never as a living tradition in most cases. I think the flashpoint, and if we discuss that in the context of what happened in Ayodhya last month, is the flashpoint of Somnath, where I think, in my view, Nehru would have been very happy to have given up the temple to ASI to have it renovated as a museum piece rather than as a living tradition. And he had this constant feud with the then president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad or K.M. Munshi, saying, I'm very, very worried about Hindu revivalism and what it would do to my image of my government, both inside India and outside India. So this preponderance, this predilection with your secular credentials, so to say, almost meant that the largest community in the country had to tone down its appearance. Every other community in the country had the right to, wear its identity on its sleeve. But somehow, if a Hindu even mentioned it with a little more, assertion, was seen as a communal and a bigoted kind of an expression. Now, when we talk of identity, the basic moorings and the underpinnings, whether we like it or not, is not necessarily in the theological and in the religious sense, but in the cultural sense, our identity certainly has a lot of predominance of Hindu, culture. So to distance that and make that rupture from the past, I think that is where all the schisms come. And today, while we are forging ahead on all the other fronts, whether it's economy or in the military front, the social schisms and the social trouble we are seeing are all battles of the past, where history becomes such a live battlefield. We are constantly thinking of renaming cities, renaming towns. We have not made, peace with our past. There's been subterfuge, there's been whitewashing, the past. And as a result, these conflicts keep coming, and that in turn defines what I think the narrative becomes. And look at the way, we've also called ourselves a secular nation. But we are the only country where only the majority community, the Hindu community, is not allowed to own its own temples, its own places of worship. We can't run our own educational institutions. If secularism means separation of church and state, the state or the government has no business running temples. I come from Karnataka, where in the recent budget, you had 300 crores for the Waqf properties, you had 200 crores for Christian institutions, and a 10% tax on Hindu temples, having a revenue of more than 1 crore. You can have non-Hindus on the board of trustees of Hindu temples. Will the converse also happen, where a Hindu or a Christian can be on the board of the Jama Masjid and so on? So I think there have been lots of such anomalies when it comes to our understanding, or this warped understanding of secularism, and that too has been a product of the Nehruvian era. And I use Nehruvian as a euphemism and not as a personal, attack on Mr. Nehru or his policy, but it's been a continued policy which has influenced our internal dynamics, our academia, our media, the way we look at history, the way we look at culture, all of that. And there is a rupture where, as Mr. Khurshid rightly said, there has to be a counter narrative. And so far, that counter narrative has been quite ruthlessly suppressed. There has been no power for that to express itself. Whether it's in academics, whether it's in media, people have paid a very heavy price, for forcefully putting forth their viewpoint. Now, to use Nehru's own terms, the soul of a nation long suppressed is finally finding utterance. And so this fight between India and Bharat, where does the soul of this nation rest? Are they the same? Are they different? Is it India that is Bharat, which means Bharat was the original entity and India was another version of that? All these contestations, and I think they are very healthy contestations, are finally happening, which was not happening so far in the last 70 years.
Okay, very well.